Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Say, did you know that in 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, that Adolf Hitler went to Hermann Goering and said, "What? I just meant you should lose some faith. I didn't mean attack." Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at 1944, the Battle of the Bulge from Worthington. In 1944, Battle of the Bulge from Worthington, two players take on the roles of either the American or the German army during that iconic 1944 battle. Each player is going to get a number of unit counters. These represent various formations, primarily infantry and armor, but you also have some paratroopers, you have some armored infantry, and some other kooky little fun things. Now, each of these units essentially have steps, kind of like a block war game. They've got a strength of, say, 4, which means the first time it gets hit, you flip it over so that it says 3. If it gets hits again, then you return that counter and you get its kind of double, which says it's now worth 2. If that gets another hit, then it is only worth 1. If it's eliminated again, it is eliminated from the game. But various counters have different strengths. Now, the counters have 3 numbers at the bottom. The first number states how many dice that particular unit is going to roll in combat, attack, or defense. The second one is an indicator of its strength, and the last one is an indicator of how many movement points it has. Now, each player has a section for the turn track, which says certain things that are going to happen to them, what reinforcements they're going to get, or what the weather's like, or whether they lose artillery. The other side of the board is going to have a chart that counts your resource points, and your resource points are the currency of the game. Each turn the Germans begin and then the Americans go. Now, the first thing you do is you can actually bring in reinforcements if they are available at that time, and then you're going to spend resource points in order to flip over to kind of resupply any units that have been damaged. You can flip them back over, but you can only do it once per step each turn. So you go ahead, you flip all of your guys back over, and then you go kind of into your movement and attack phase. Now, each of your units can move and attack, and they don't necessarily have to do it. They can do it pretty much in any order. So you can potentially attack with one guy, move another guy, and then move the original guy that attacked. You've got little markers that kind of help you keep track of who was moved and who was attacked. Now, in order to move or attack with a unit, you need to activate its resource points. Essentially, it costs you 1 to launch an attack or to move. You go ahead then and you can, as I say, move that up to its movement points. Now, if you're moving along a road, it's like 1/3 of a point. So you can move really far along the roads. But as soon as you get to any kind of forest or rough territory, the movement points increase. Each unit on the board also exerts a zone of control. So if you move into an enemy's zone of control, it's going to cost you 3 movement points. You can also attack a unit with multiple units. But whenever you launch an attack, you add up the die that you're rolling for your attacking unit, any attacking units, and then you put that against the die roll of the enemy. Now, either side has some options to bring in artillery, which can give you a +1, and you can also add a general, either Patton for the Allies later in the game, or Manteuffel for the Germans, which give your units a +1 movement and a +1 die. But you go ahead and you grab the number of die as the attacker that you're going to attack with. The defender grabs a number of die that they're defending with, and you both roll. Now, the die are red, and most sides are blank, but some of them have an X, some of them have the oval for the armor. The oval represents the armor, the X represents the infantry. So you're going to kind of deal out attacks that way. But if you roll armor and there's only infantry there, that armor will apply to the infantry. Now, there's a few other interesting things that happen here. The Germans have a airborne unit that can drop behind the enemy lines on the second term. It really does not have any fighting ability, but it can exert zone of control, and it can capture cities on the map, so it can wreak some kind of havoc and also critically put units out of supply. The Germans also have an armor unit that is disguised as an American unit. So essentially it can move behind the lines, it can cause all sorts of problems, but as soon as it attacks an American unit or it takes a town, it reveals itself as a German unit. Also, too, if it enters a zone of control of an American unit, it must roll a die. It's got a 50-50 chance of being exposed as a German unit. Now, critically, all units must be able to trace line of supply. They have to be within 3 hexes of a road that is in supply, and that cannot in any way be interdicted or influenced by an enemy zone of control. If they can trace 3 spaces to a road that they control, then they're okay. As soon as they can't do that, as soon as they're cut off or surrounded or just through circumstances don't have that, then they have to put an out-of-supply token. If they have an out-of-supply token, they have severe restrictions on movement and on their die they will roll during combat. Now, the German is trying to take cities. He's trying to capture various cities on the board. Now, most of the towns are just worth 1 point. However, there are several locations that are worth 2 points. Now, if the German captures 14 points by the end of the game, the time the turn tracker runs out, then he wins the game. If he just gets 13 points, then it is a draw. However, if the Allies succeed in making sure that the Germans do not capture more than 12 victory points, then they win. 1944, Battle of the Bulge. Now, there's a lot more in this game. There's some optional rules with weather that affects weather. It's not set, it can change. And the Americans later in the game, they have air support units that can come in and give more die to the ground battles. You've actually got some different objective cards. You can play games where the Germans are going for different objectives in the game. So there's a lot more you can do here, and a lot more things that are different that you can mix it up with. Now, first of all, there's a few little wonky things here. Some of the rules for those German special units, the paratroopers and the disguised German units, some of the rules were not as detailed as I wanted them to be. Now, I should point out this is a very light rule book. It's a very thin rule book. This is not a heavy game, not a hard game to learn and to play. And consequently, for special circumstances like that, the rules weren't fleshed out as well as I would have liked them to have been. So it would have been nice if there was a little bit more on stuff like that. With that said, this is a brilliant game. I had a ton of fun with this game. Zach and I played it, and we loved it. You know, I was actually just thinking not too long ago, I'd really like to play a fun Battle of the Bulge game that doesn't take, 8 hours. A Battle of the Bulge game that just maybe takes 2 to 3 hours or something like that. And this game's about that. It's about 2 to 3. It took us about 3 hours, but there was a bit of a learning curve that we got through. Not bad, but it's there. But it's a fairly simple game once you get it. I mean, once you get it, everything's just humming here. Well, I say it's just humming. I must tell you, it's humming in the sense that you get the rules. But the reality is, I am somebody that kind of prides himself on, I'm not very afflicted by AP. I'm not terribly afflicted by AP. But this game gave both me and Zach some serious AP. Our analysis paralysis was about as high as it's ever been in any game we played in recent memory. The game has some really tough choices. Now, any Battle of the Bulge game has that tension, right? It's really about, can the Germans take their early advantage and push it and keep it going until they capture everything they need to capture. And the Americans, their idea here is, how do we slow them down? What can we do in order to keep the Germans from achieving their objectives? I mean, that's basically what the Battle of the Bulge was about. And with the roads and the bridges and everything that went on, it's just a very dramatic and a fun game to recreate in cardboard. And so I really liked that, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to play another kind of fun game around this battle. And this game does it so well. 1944 Battle of the Bulge really does a good job. I mean, you've got the problems with traffic jams. After about the third or fourth day, the German artillery can't keep up, so you can't use artillery anymore. It does a good job of both creating the history, in general terms, the history of the battle, but also to making it a fun, playable, and fairly even-handed game. This was a game that I think was on one of the last turns, like the second to the last turn, Zach was ready to concede. He was literally ready to concede because I think, like 16 points. He's like, I can't win. I'm like, are you sure, Zach? Are you sure? He said, well, let's keep playing. And then, of course, he played his turn, and he was able to take back a bunch of points. He's like, yeah. And then the next turn, I was good again, and it kept going back and forth, and it was tight. It was so tight. We didn't know who was going to win right till the very end. And that was fun. That was really, really fun. I really got a kick out of that. This is a really good war game that, you know, fans of, well, I shouldn't say fans, but I guess enthusiasts of this battle and World War II combat games in general, I think will really get a kick out of. Recommendation, this is a no-brainer. You're going to want to buy this game. This deserves a place on your shelf. Buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on BoardGameGeek, Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like military history, I'd ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history, we talk about books on military history, and all sorts of fun things. I'd ask you to subscribe to that channel as well. And I'd ask you to please leave us a like on BoardGameGeek Geek for this video if you've enjoyed it. That helps us out a lot as well. You know, ladies and gentlemen, whenever a clock goes forward, it goes tick-tock. But whenever a German goes backward, it's a tack-tick.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Hey, I'm just sitting here at my piano, and I wrote a little song for you guys. I'm not going to sing it because it's not very good.